metabolic rate is regulated by the largest endocrine gland present in our body. Yes, it is thyroid gland. Hello everybody, welcome to Alan Digital. Today we are going to talk about thyroid gland in detail. So before going in for the lecture, let's understand what is this thyroid gland, where exactly it is located, what is the function of the thyroid gland, everything in detail. First, let's talk about where is this thyroid gland present. You can see this image. This is the thyroid gland. So the thyroid gland is located in the neck region and it is present onto the ventral as well as onto the lateral side. Ventral is frontal and lateral is side. So this is present between the larynx as well as onto the trachea. So we can say a thyroid gland is located in the neck region between the larynx and the trachea onto the ventral and the lateral side also. And you can see this looks like a head-shaped structure as well as it is a butterfly-shaped gland. And if you observe here, this thyroid gland is made up of two lobes. So we can say it is a bilobe structure. And each of the bilobe are connected by a connective tissue which is very, very thin. You can observe here, it is a very thin, flat connective tissue which are very importantly non-glandular in nature. The entire thyroid gland will secrete hormones, but except this isthmus, which are made up of connective tissue, but they are not going to secrete any kind of substances. So this connection is called as isthmus. Yes. Now we know about what is this thyroid gland. Now let's understand what's the speciality of this thyroid gland. When we talk about pancreas or adrenal gland, we will say they used to secrete their secretions like hormones, but they will be used and will be destroyed after it is used. But thyroid gland, what is the important or what is the special characteristics that it has? This is the only endocrine gland that is present in our body which stores its hormone in an inactive form. No other endocrine gland in our body usually stores its hormone. So what is that inactive state going to be? This is going to be thyroglobulin. So thyroglobulin is the inactive form which is actually present in the body. Next one is the synthesis of thyroxine is stimulated by TSH. Just understand carefully. Thyroglobulin is inactive. But this inactive form will not do any function. It has to be converted into a very active form that is going to be T3 and T4. And T4 is called as thyroxine. Now the question for us is how this thyroxine is actually produced. So the synthesis of thyroxine is stimulated by TSH. Let's understand in detail. Let's talk about hypothalamus. And we know hypothalamus is called as the master of a master gland. So this hypothalamus will secrete two important factors. One is going to be a releasing factor. Another one is going to be an inhibitory factor. Releasing factor will increase the production. Inhibitory factor will decrease the production of an anterior part of the pituitary hormones. So for now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take this RF. Example, this hypothalamus is going to produce THS RF factor. And this will come in the hypophyseal portal system. Understand carefully, I'm talking about the hypophyseal portal system, which is very important system that you will be studying in the chemical control and integration chapter. And through this hypophyseal portal system, as soon as this TSH RF comes, it will stimulate the anterior part of the pituitary. Now, what is this anterior part of the pituitary is going to do is, since RF factor is coming, this is going to increase the production of TSH. Now, this TSH has increased a lot. Now, because of this TSH, it will go to the blood. And this TSH will go in the blood. And this hormone is thyroid stimulating hormone. Just imagine this is going to stimulate the thyroid gland. So it will go travel in the blood and it is going to reach the thyroid gland. So I'm writing thyroid gland as TG. And now this thyroglobulin, which is the inactive form, will be converted into, so let me write thyroglobulin will be converted into thyroxines, or we can say T3 and T4. So I can say, without the stimulation of hypothalamus and the anterior part of the pituitary, thyroid gland will never produce T3 and T4. Usually, this is the only gland which is present in our body which stores its secretion in an inactive form, and no other endocrine gland actually present in our body will store its secretion. So this is an important characteristics. Now let's talk about the transverse section. Suppose if I cut the transverse section of a thyroid gland, what else you can see inside? So this complete thyroid gland is made up of connective tissue. So this central part is actually a connective tissue and we used to call it as stoma. Yes, so this is the stroma region. And the outermost region of the thyroid gland, if you observe, this is very fibrous. If you just check out of other organs, mostly fibrous tissues are present, mainly for the protection. So inside you see lot of structures which are present in circles, and these are called as what? The complete round structure is called as thyroid follicles. And the most important question for NEET examination, which you will be studying in structural organization in animals, is thyroid follicles are lined by simple cuboidal epithelium. So only one layer of cells with cube-like cells are present over there. You can see these are all simple cuboidal in nature. Only one layer are present. Suppose if I write this complete thyroid follicles here, I'm just going to draw the complete structure. They are cube-like cells and this complete one is called as follicular epithelium. Suppose if I take one of the cell, only one of the cell, which has nucleus over there, and this is called as follicular cell, and this follicular cell is otherwise called as achinal cell. So you have to remember there are a lot of thyroid follicles which are present in the stroma region, and they are made up of simple cuboidal epithelium, and each of the cells are referred to as follicular cells, or we can call it achinal cells. What is this red color cells called as? This red color cells are called as parafollicular cells. Just understand it carefully. Parafollicular cells. So I can say these parafollicular cells are exactly present between the thyroid follicles, or they are present at the base of the thyroid follicle. Now the question comes for us is, who is going to secrete T3 and T4? And listen carefully. This is going to be the space where the thyroglobulins will be stored. As I already mentioned, thyroglobulin is going to be the inactive form which is actually stored over there. What does it mean? It is going to combine with iodine. So we can say it's a glycoprotein. It is actually a glycoprotein which is present inside. Now what is going to happen? Just imagine, in the blood, iodine is coming. Somebody has to trap the iodine. So follicular cells will trap the iodine and sends them to the thyroglobulin which is in the center. If I have to write, one iodine combines with one of the tyrosine residue. So tyrosine is an amino acid, and this amino acid is present in the thyroglobulins. Now what they will form is, they form something called as monoiodotyrosine. It is tyrosine. So for now I'm referring it as Mi for our understanding. Suppose if two iodine molecules combines with the tyrosine, this tyrosine is present in the thyroglobulin, okay, which are made up of lot of amino acid, and now they will form tyrosine, which I am referring it as Di. Now, how is this T3 and T4 are formed? Suppose if I write monoiodothyronine and diiodothyronine combines together, they make up T3. T3, which is triiodothyronins, it's not tyrosine. And diiodotyrosine and diiodothyrosin combines together make up T4, which is called as thyroxins. So thyroglobulin is the one which is inactive, which can be converted into what? T3 and T4. This will happen only when TSH come and stimulate the thyroid gland. So now we know thyroglobulin is the inactive form which gets converted into T3 and T4. Now the next question comes for us is T3 active or T4 active? I'm going to tell you, T3 is very effective. T3 is very effective than T4, or I can say they are more potent than a T4 molecule. Now we understood about this one. Now let's see what exactly it is present. So the thyroid gland is composed of follicular cells or a follicular epithelium which is lined by a simple cuboidal epithelium, and the stroma I told you where the thyroid follicles are present, and each thyroid follicles are composed of follicular cells, we have seen, enclosing a cavity. In this cavity, thyroglobulin is present. This is what we have seen. Later, this thyroglobulin will be converted into T3 and T4 molecule we have seen. So they are going to synthesize T4, which is otherwise called as tetra. Tetra is nothing but 4 iodothyrronins, not tyrosine. and the next one is triiodothyronins. So we have understood the complete thyroid gland. Now we have to understand what is the function of this entire hormone which is present in the thyroid gland. I told you in the initial of the class itself that basal metabolic rate is regulated by a thyroid gland. Most important point for your examination, just understand what is this basal metabolic rate. So when you consume any kind of food, it will be generated into an energy. So energy will be calculated in the form of calories. So the amount of energy in the form of calories are going to be basal metabolic rate. So I can say this as what? Calorigenic effect. So remember this point, most important point for your NEET examination. Next important point, of course, energy will be in the form of ATP. And this hormone is responsible for taking a lot of calcium and phosphate. Next one, if you have a lot of ATP, then definitely what will happen? DNA synthesis will take place. Then protein synthesis will take place. Using that protein, it is helpful to differentiate tissues also. Most important point, understand. Hypothalamus is also responsible for maintaining our body temperature. Same way, thyroid gland is also responsible for maintaining our body temperature. So BMR as well as the body temperature is maintained by the thyroid gland. And the next important point for this is, it is also helpful to maintain our water and the electrolyte balance in our body. If there is no thyroid gland or thyroxine secretions, then water and the electrolytes will not be balanced. So if I have to talk about the most important point, the first point, body temperature and the water and the electrolytes are maintained by them. Next one, thyroid is responsible to do many other functions like carbohydrate metabolism, fat metabolism, protein metabolism. But the most important point to be noted is, it is also called as diabetogenic hormone. What does it mean? Diabeto means, which means increase of glucose level. So thyroid is a hormone which is responsible to increase the glucose level in our body, like cortisol does, growth hormone does. So they are all called as diabetogenic hormone. And if I have to talk about a female, it is the one which regulates the menstrual cycle. So this thyroid gland is playing an important role in case of female human beings. And it is also involved in a process called as erythropoiesis. Poiesis means formation, erythro means RBC. So it is involved in the formation of RBC also. So these are some of the points that you have to remember for the examination: BMR, body temperature, and then calorigenic effect, and it's a diabetogenic hormone, and it is involved in regulating your menstrual cycle and also RBC production. Apart from that, there are several other functions which are done by them, and the most important function is, it is involved in the maturation and the development of your central nervous system. Because it is maintaining a basal metabolic rate, ultimately it's going to do this function. Okay, if I talk in case of amphibians, so you can see here, it stimulates the metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is the conversion of a tadpole larva into a complete frog. Suppose if you see this image, you can see a larval stage into a frog is actually regulated by the presence of the thyroid gland. If thyroid gland is not there, then metamorphosis in the amphibians like frogs will not take place. Okay. Now the most important part for our examination is, suppose if a thyroid gland secretion T3 and T4 becomes less, then what is the situation? So hypo is referring to less amount of T3 and T4. Hyper is something, if T3 and T4 becomes maximum, then what are the problems that arises in a human individual? So why this hypothyroidism occurs? Why this T3 and T4 occurs? Because hormonal deficiency. And why hyperthyroidism occurs? We already know follicular cells are there, and that will increase in size and increase in number. So if these cells increase in size and number, then T3 and T4 level increases. It also causes some condition. So first let's talk about hypothyroidism. So this is, you have to remember, if T3 and T4 level decreases than the normal level, it usually causes some conditions. So first is simple goiter, second is gretinism, and the third one is myxedema, and the fourth one is Hashimoto's disease. So first let's talk about what is the simple goiter. Yes, simple goiter will be occurring in most of the individuals, like it's an endemic disease, but it's not been caused from one generation to another generation. It is not genetic at all. But listen carefully, it is because of deficiency of iodine. If there is no iodine, thyroglobulin will not be able to combine with iodine. So because of deficiency of iodine in the diet, or it can be in the form of water, it causes this condition, which is simple goiter. So you can see this image. The thyroid gland enlarges than normally. So you can see this is the largest enlargement that you can ever see. Largest enlargement, and it's endemic. Most commonly seen in all the individuals. So remember, hypothyroidism, we are talking about simple goiter, which is because of deficiency of iodine in your food or your diet. The second one is cretinism. The word gives you an idea. Cretin means stunted growth. So this kind of condition usually occurs in women, or it is actually occurring during pregnancy. It usually occurs during pregnancy, which is hypothyroidism. What will happen to such kind of individual? You will see a stunted growth happening in such kind of individuals. And the most important condition for this is pigeon's chest. The sternum which is present will bulge anteriously. So it looks like a pigeon's chest also. And of course, it causes mental retardation problem and abnormal skin and deaf mutism. So you have to remember one point. If T3 and T4 are going to be less, then the basal metabolic rate decreases. Then the body temperature decreases. Body temperature decreases. Then there is going to be decrease of heart rate, pulse rate. Pulse rate decreases. And there is also decrease in the sugar. So in such kind of patients, you can observe this one. But most importantly, cretinism is a condition which is seen in childhood conditions, not in the adult conditions. So remember this point, which is very, very important for our examination. So we are done with the second one. Now we are moving on to the third hypothyroidism, which is myxedema. So edema means bulging. Understand this point. It is called as Gall's disease. Star point, which is, it is occurring in the adult. Cretinism is in the young stage, whereas myxedema is in the adult stage. Same case, T3 and T4 is less, so BMR is less. So what is the condition? So what will happen is there will be deposition of some adipose tissues, deposition of myxomatous tissues will take place. So you can see swollen skins. Main thing you can easily understand it, during hypothyroidism, people will gain weight. That's the main important condition. Hair fall, and most important point for this is menstrual cycle becomes irregular in such kind of patients, very specifically in case of female human beings. Okay. So this is about myxedema. Understand the point. It is occurring in the adult and most common for men as well as for women. The next one, Hashimoto's. So this is also because of hypothyroidism, and it's an autoimmune disorder. Our body just destroys our own thyroid gland. But why it happens? Suppose if there is an injury or there is going to be some kind of aging, and because of this, this thyroid gland will be damaged. Because of thyroid gland which is damaged, of course, T3, T4 level decreases. And because of this, our own immune system goes and destroys our own thyroid gland. So this is an autoimmune disorder. So we talked about hypothyroidism. First example, we have talked about a simple goiter because of iodine deficiency. Cretinism we have seen usually occurs in childhood stage. Myxedema in case of adult, and Hashimoto's disease, which is an autoimmune disorder. Now we are going to talk about hyperthyroidism, which means because of tumor or because of nodule formation, T3 and T4 level increases. And understand this point, do not ever confuse with the goiter that we see in case of simple goiter, and this is exophthalmic goiter. Ophtha means eye, X means which is out. So what will happen in such kind of patient is protrusion of eyes will take place. So this is a very easy point to remember. Protrusion of the eyeball will take place in such kind of people whose T3 and T4 level increases. And the other name for this is Graves' disease. Most important for our NEET examination. And in such kind of patients, what will happen? T3 and T4 level is maximum. So BMR is maximum. If BMR is maximum, high temperature. Whenever a high temperature is there, then what will happen? People will lose weight. So, hypothyroidism, people gain weight. In hyperthyroidism, people lose weight. So, you can see weight loss, increased BMR and enlargement of thyroid gland. If you're going to ask me a question, ma'am, simple goiter also enlargement of gland take place, and even in exophthalmic goiter, otherwise called as Graves also, the enlargement of the gland take place. But simple goiters, enlargement is even more maximum than an exophthalmic goiter. So this is for the hyperthyroidism. Now we have done with the complete thyroid, very specifically about the follicular cells. Now we are going to talk about another cells which are exactly present in the thyroid gland. So we have talked about this part, which is going to be the follicles. or we can say follicular epithelium, or we can say thyroid follicles. And they secreted T3 and T4, and we talked about the hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. Now we have to talk about this cells, which is called as parafollicular cells, which is otherwise called as C cells. What is this cells going to do? Check over here. These cells are also endocrine in nature, and they are found in the stroma. This is the stroma, and they're present between the thyroid follicle or at the base of the follicles. And these cells are going to secrete one important hormone, star point. Remember, L is over there. So L is there. So it usually lowers calcium level in the blood. It lowers calcium level in the blood. And remember carefully, this is a hormone which lacks iodine. So this is a hormone which actually lacks iodine. Not like the T3 and T4 which has iodine. This actually lacks iodine. So now let's talk about what is the function of this thyrocalcitonin. So this thyrocalcitonin is going to lower the calcium level in the blood. But just imagine, in a patient, if the calcium level becomes higher than normal, so what is going to happen? All the excess calcium will be stored in the bones. So in the bones, we're going to store the excess calcium, and we don't want any more excess calcium into our blood. So it decreases the reabsorption of calcium from the nephric fluid. So what exactly we have done is, in a patient, if the nephric or the calcium level increases than normal, we have to reduce the calcium level. That's the role of this hormone. So it usually stores in the bones, or we reduce the reabsorption of calcium from the nephric fluid. And one important point that you have to see for this hormone is, this hormone is antagonist to COLIPS, otherwise called as PTH, which is parathyroid, which is secreted by the parathyroid gland, which means parathyroid hormone will increases the calcium level in the blood. So they are doing opposite function. Thyrocalcitonin decreases the calcium level in the blood. PTH increases the calcium level in the blood. So we've talked about the follicular cells, and we have talked about the parafollicular cells present in our thyroid gland. So now let's have some questions. So the first question is, it is a question from our NEET 2023. Which of the following are not under the control of thyroid hormone? So maintenance of water and electrolyte balance we have seen for thyroid gland, so which is correct. And regulation of basal metabolic rate, yes, it is the role of thyroid gland, but the normal rhythm of sleep-wake cycle is not done by thyroid gland, which is actually done by a pineal gland. So this is actually a wrong option which is given here, so we have to select this. And the next one is development of immune system is not done by thyroid gland, which is actually done by thymus gland. The next one, next option, support the process of RBC formation. This is also we have seen, which is erythropoiesis in case of thyroid gland. So which of the option is wrong if we have to select not under the control? Then it is going to be option number C and D. So it is third option, C and D only. Next one, which gland stores hormones in intercellular spaces between the secretion into blood? The only endocrine gland which actually stores its secretion is, of course, thyroid gland, which we know is thyroglobulin. The next question you can see here is, hypothyroidism in case of adult causes which of these conditions? So this is a question that I'm giving you for homework. If you know the answer, put it in the comment section. Thank you for all of you for joining. I'm going to meet you back again in another video. Thank you, everybody.